Hello everyone, welcome to my channel Learn Law with Professor Rashmi. In Environmental Law series, today we are going to discuss polluter pays principles. If you are new to the channel, do subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the upcoming updates. Also, you can go back and check our different series on the channel and keep yourself updated. Coming forward to polluter pays principles. Let me tell you before we move ahead, polluter pays principle simply means polluter has to pay. Is it this much only? No. The polluter pays principles would have two approaches in it. First is, of course, polluter has to pay, that is the victim of that pollution has to be compensated for the loss which is caused. Secondly, the person or the entity or the industry who has caused pollution and who has degraded the environment also has to pay or also has to make efforts and restore the ecology or environment as it was before the pollution. So always remember, polluter pays principles will have these two approaches. Two approaches together forms polluter pays principle. Polluter pays principles. Now, as you know, World Commission on Environment and Development, that is Brundtland Commission, in its report Our Common Future, likewise as it defined sustainable development, it also talked about polluter pays principle. It suggested that environment cost of any economic activity shall be internalized by the enterprise. Simply, it means that the industry which is doing any economic activity and causing pollution, it has to bear that cost and pay to the victims of that pollution as well as reverse the effects caused to the environment. Principle 16 of Rio Declaration also encompasses the principle of polluter pays. Polluter pays principle earlier was used as economic and administrative measure. Now it is recognized as powerful legal tool to combat environment pollution and associated problems. So earlier it was economic and administrative measure. Now it is recognized as powerful legal tool for environment pollution and problems. Let us discuss important case laws with this polluter pays principle. Starting with, first is implied application. As we have already discussed this MC Mehta versus Union of India or Oleum gas leak case of 1987 in absolute liability principle. You all know about the facts of this case. So we need not dig into the facts again. You can go back to that lecture and check about the facts and total what this case was exactly. But talking about polluter pays principle with this respect to particular case, here it was implied application of this polluter pays principle was made. That is, the Oleum gas leak, that is Shriram Fertilizers, were asked to compensate to the victims whom the loss was caused or damage was caused. So polluter pays had an implied application. When it was expressly used, so polluter pays at the first time was expressly applied in the case of Indian Council for Enviro Legal Action versus Union of India 1996, that is H-acid case or sludges case. We have already discussed the facts of this case in our earlier lecture, so we need not go into it again. Always remember that polluter pays principle was made or expressly applied in this particular case. How? That is, the villagers who had suffered because of the sludges in the environment were to be compensated. So Supreme Court directed that you have to compensate to these people, that is villagers, as well as it has to make good or take necessary measures to remove the sludge and other pollutants which were lying in that affected areas, in the soil, in underground water, everything. So this is how the polluter pays principle was first expressly applied in this H-acid case. Coming forward to next case, Vellore Citizen Welfare Forum versus Union of India 1996. Now this Vellore Citizen Welfare Forum, this case we are going to discuss with facts in detail in upcoming lecture, that is precautionary principle. So I need not mention the facts here, because always remember that why this case is important under polluter pays. Because in this case, Supreme Court had remarked that polluter pays principle is an essential feature of sustainable development. We all know what is sustainable development. Development which is using today's resources without compromising the resources available for future generations. So if my environment is polluted today, how the future generation is going to have the environment pollution free. That is the reason there is a need of polluter pays principles. So any enterprise which is polluting the environment should reverse the effect caused on the environment as well as ecology. That is the reason Supreme Court is saying in this particular case law that polluter pays principle is an essential feature of sustainable development. Coming forward to next case law, MC Mehta versus Union of India, AIR 1997, that is also known as or popularly known as Taj yellowing case. Here Supreme Court had reiterated and re-emphasized the need of polluter pays principles. Again, this case we will discuss in future course as and when in upcoming lectures. We need not go into details today because this case is relevant with air pollution. So at the time when we discuss air pollution, we are going to discuss this case. Next, again one important case, S. Jagannath versus Union of India, AIR 1997. Again, this case I am not going to go into much detailed facts here. This case is about shrimp culture. That is basically the industry of shrimp culture farming was going around in Chilka and Pulicat lakes. That is to the east coast, adjacent to the east coast of the country. So this shrimp culture farming was causing excessive salinity in the soil and the drinking water. Therefore, it was detrimental, or it caused detriment. It was to the detriment, or it was that salinity was affecting the flora and fauna, that is local flora and fauna. Hence, Supreme Court ordered that this shrimp culture industry shall be closed. It also directed that industry should compensate the individuals, those who are affected by these industries, and also it should contribute for reversing the damage caused to the ecology. Supreme Court also further had directed that compensation should be recovered, has to be deposited under Environment Relief Fund. So H. Jagannath is popularly known as aquaculture or shrimp culture case. It is one of the important cases where Supreme Court decided to close down these industries because it was affecting the ecology. So, and compensation was done, and again effect on ecology had to be reversed by these companies. So basically this is what polluter pays principle is. Next is MC Mehta versus Kamal Nath 1997. It is also known as Span Motel case or River Bias case. Now this case is one of the important case or the case which we discuss under public trust doctrine. So again one of the interesting case where I am not going to go into details today because we will discuss it when we discuss public trust doctrine. So this case, simply remember that it is also has to be mentioned in polluter pays principle. Here in this case Supreme Court had held that Span Motel interfered with the natural flow of river Bias. It tried to block the natural channel of the river, and hence this motel was directed to pay compensation by way of cost of restitution of environment and ecology by applying this polluter pays principle. So these are the different cases under this polluter pays which we can discuss. There are many much more, you can go and dig into details, but these are the important cases which shouldn't be missed when you talk about polluter pays principle. Coming forward, are there any statutes or legislations which do encompass or which do include this polluter pays principle? The answer would be yes. The Public Liability Insurance Act, which was enacted in 1991, it says that it is a mandatory duty of all the industries who are having capital value of 2 lakh plus that they should get insured under the act. We have already discussed this under absolute liability principle also, this Public Liability Insurance Act. Also NETA 1995, that is National Environment Tribunal Act. This is also says that it also incorporates this principle. So this particular act also incorporates this polluter pays principle. So this was all about polluter pays principles. Again, I would suggest you that as we move forward, we are going to deal with different kind of cases. Some cases would be repetition, some would be new and specific to that particular principle or doctrine or article of the Constitution. So I would suggest that make a chart with name of the case, brief facts popularly known as, if you are aware of the Supreme Court Justice who has delivered the judgment, that would be well and good, and you talk about which principle or doctrine it is talking about. There may be a case which is also talking about sustainable development, polluter pays and also about precautionary, then you can remember this. So this chart would be helpful in your last minute revision at the time of exam. So do keep preparing this chart and updating as and when we complete our lectures. This was all about polluter pays principles. Always remember that polluter pays simply doesn't mean only to compensate the victim of the pollution. It also means that whatever ecology or environment which is damaged because of the pollution, efforts and funds are to be raised or to be given by the enterprise so that these effects of pollution are reversed. This is all about polluter pays principles. See you in next lecture. Till then, keep studying. Bye. Thank you.